the link. You can put a link in for Scott.
I'm working on it.
How do I look?
Scary. It'd be hard to concentrate.
Well, I'm not going to wear it the whole time.
That would be a trip.
Does it say my name on the live view? Because people, I was like, man, this is people can use this. I'm just gonna screenshot myself here, haters.
Yeah,
you could have a screenshot of me, my name, and then just of a picture of a clown.
Here, I'll text it to you. Look up at the camera. All right, I got your screenshot. I'll text it to you. All right, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, just give people like 30 seconds or so. All right, what's up, Degenerate Nation? I'm Stucky, if you couldn't recognize me. And with me, as always, is Colin Wilson. I'm serving my punishment. I won't be wearing this the whole show, by the way. But I'm serving my punishment for betting Akron again. And by the way, when I talk, my mouth on this kind of moves. My dog was petrified of this thing, by the way. He was running away. Then he was trying to jump up and eat my nose. But yeah, serving my punishment for betting Akron again. We have Akron on Tuesday night again?
You may have Akron on Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah, no, I will not. They have moved on to my do not bet list, so that means they are loot on Wednesday. They're at Miamville, Ohio. That fraud Miamville, Ohio.
It took you week 13 to put them on the do not bet list.
Well, you still haven't put UMass on the do not bet list, and I've been fading them all year, so you're not one to talk. And
I'm considering it over today. So,
all right. Let's got a lot of action today, but first I just want to say that this is all right. I'm going to serve my punishment. This is going to come in handy, by the way, in future when we make bad bets or lose bad bets. But hold on one second. Now I'm all hot and sweaty. All right. Let's pull up the board. And see what's on the move and what we have early. UMass has actually come down. There's some UMass money in the market. Look, if you go to any model, this is what consistently happens. And you need to remind me this of next year is like these bottom 3 or 4 teams. They're at almost every model I see, they're always, the lines are always too short. And these teams, people just never find out how bad the worst teams in college football are. And I think UMass is historically bad. They might have a bottom 5 offense and a bottom 5 defense over the last 15 years. But look at any model. What does S&P make this line? 5? You probably make it like 28, right? Mm-hmm. And there's these bottom 3 or 4 teams, and it's Akron and it's UMass this year. It's Bowling Green where it's just you just have to not even get close to them all year, and sometimes the market never finds their floor. But there's no. I mean, look, I think Northwestern's going to score every possession, and UMass won't score. We've gone on lots of rants about this. I don't see how UMass scores. It's the best defense they played by far, not even close.
Yeah, Northwestern has a good defense.
Yeah, so I don't see them scoring, and this UMass defense is. I mean, if Northwestern just hands it off every play, they could score 50. I mean, this is a team that gave up 45 to Southern Illinois. So, I mean, there could be flukes. Maybe UMass breaks a play, and then it becomes a lot harder because Northwestern isn't an explosive team. But by the way, these teams late in the year, these teams who have a winning percentage of 33% or less, and they're favored by the biggest favorite ever of 33 or less, with a winning percentage of 33% or less this late in the season was 25 points. And that was Washington versus Washington State in 2009. Washington ended up covering, but this spread is 2 touchdowns more than that. But if you look back historically, there was a Ball State when they like quit a couple years ago, they were like 24-point dogs. But every time this has happened with these big spreads with these bad teams that have a winning percentage of 33% or less, they cover. They end up, I think they're taking a lot of their frustrations out from a bad year against a really bad team. And if Northwestern goes up here, I mean, what does UMass have left in the locker room? I mean, this team might quit. So I'm on Northwestern. We'll see. Yeah. Might get my big. If there wasn't so many good games on at noon that I have money on, it would get my main TV. But it will get a TV.
Okay. No, I agree with you. It should be on Northwestern. I like the under in this game. I don't think UMass is going to score, and I don't think Northwestern is going to put up 58.
All right, well, there you have it. We've talked enough about UMass. By the way, they have 1 game left. They're at home against BYU next week. All right, let's also talk about what else we're on at noon and what else is moving. We're both on Missouri. We told everyone on the pod to get that 7, which lasted for a little bit, but it came down to 6. It's back up to 6.5 now. This is just a terrible spot for Missouri. 11 a.m. kick in the cold. For Florida. 11 a.m. kick in the cold, going against a really good secondary. I mean, this Missouri defense, probably the most underrated D in the country, right? Because they have top 10, top 15 D possibly, and no one talks about them because they're 5-4. But Florida can't run the ball. Missouri has an excellent. I mean, Missouri has a good run D too. They're just a good defense all around, and they have a really good secondary. They'll mix up the looks. I think Trask will make a couple mistakes. Kelly Bryant's back, and the 2 things that Florida struggles with are elite tight ends, and Missouri has an NFL tight end, and mobile quarterbacks. I would go heavier on this game if, I wasn't worried about Kelly Bryant. I assume he's 100%. He warmed up last week, but he also, if he tweaks his hamstring, it could be goodnight, Irene, because the backups are not good at Missouri. What do you see?
Yeah, I completely agree. And this should be an all-out effort. I mean, you look at the rest of Missouri's schedule, Tennessee and Arkansas, that's not really a desirable way to wrap up your season when you're banned from going to a bowl. So this really is the biggest and the last real game on Missouri's schedule. They're undefeated at home this year, haven't lost since October of last year. I think Barry Odom doesn't want to be back on the hot seat, a place that he's been on before with Missouri. And I think a loss here would make this feel like a lost season. At least it's been mentioned a few times. So I think you're going to get full effort out of them. But I mean, if you just look at their defensive stats over here, on the left, complementing our sports insights here on the right, they're, top 15 in rushing success rate, 4th in passing success rate. The defense is legit. Give a little explosive plays on the ground, but that's not Florida's game. I mean, Florida hasn't had a running game. They're one-dimensional on offense all year. So yeah, definitely Missouri's one of my bigger plays, and Missouri's definitely in my round robin parlay. Everything we can get is on Missouri.
Yep. All right, let's move on here. Let's talk Bama, Mississippi State. Now,
you and I are the only ones on Mississippi State, by the way. I've seen all the people on the national media talking head show, and it's like Alabama's going to put up a 50 burger and they're going to get out of town. Like, really?
Well,
it's that
yeah,
easy?
I think this is historically a bad spot. It's the same spot as Penn State, right? Like Bama still has a shot at the college football playoff, but I mean, so does Penn State. But once you lose that game that is, puts you on the outside looking in, the week after, you usually come out a little flat. Now, the line is, I grabbed some 21 early in the week, and this line, what is it, down to 17 at some spots? What this is implying, I assume, and I've said this all week, I don't think Tua is going to play because for a number of reasons, right? He's hurt. And they have Western Carolina on deck. You want the kid to be healthy. I mean, he's got a pro career coming up. So in the interest of him, Bama should, and they, should believe that they are going to win this game without him and Mac Jones. And also, this is just my own theory. If Tua doesn't play this week and Tua doesn't play next week and Bama still wins, it adds to the narrative that Tua was hurt for the LSU game, right? He didn't play the next week. He didn't play against Western Carolina. And it goes to that narrative that, Bama lost to LSU, but Tua was hurt. Now, that doesn't look great for Alabama if they do that, because then it means they played Tua hurt for his career. But I think just overall, the main reason is they want him to be healthy. And I think they think that they can win this game without him. But this is Missouri. This is Mississippi State off of a bye. This is their Super Bowl this year. The cowbells will be ringing. Alabama might be a little flat. And we said this all year. The Alabama front seven is vulnerable, and the numbers play it out. You can show them right here.
Yeah, I mean, if you look over here, the thing that caught my attention on this game was all the green on the bottom right there for Mississippi State, 13th in line yards, which means they get the required yards they have to get when they rush the ball, no matter what the down and distance is. Their opportunity rate, their stuff rate is really huge. It means they're going to be able to – they're not going to get touched behind the line of scrimmage. And I think that just goes with the point that we talked about last week against LSU. Is Alabama's defense is really young, especially in the front seven, and Joe Burrow was able to capitalize on that through the air, over the middle. I mean, they had a field day with this defense, and I hope Alabama doesn't get into the playoff, because this defense doesn't belong in the playoff. The offense does. The offense is one of the best in the nation for Alabama, but this defense is just not ready. Now, defensively for Mississippi State, I mean, these quarterbacks are going to get abused, but at the same time, like we said on the podcast, if Mississippi State can run the ball and extend drives and limit the number of possessions by Alabama, you can cover 18 points.
Yep. Bama also trash special teams. Keep that in mind. The other thing, look, if you look down at Mississippi State, the thing they can't do is they can't throw it. They turn it over. They're pass. They have no explosiveness in the passing game. And look at that sack rate. But I think that they can run the ball, so they'll stay ahead of the sticks. And then on the third and short, if you look at that power, success, and the stuff rate, that means that they're going to be able to pick up those third and maybe fourth and shorts and keep the chains moving, keep the clock moving, which I think will be big here. And look, what time is it? 11? It'll probably be announced soon. I don't think Tua's going to play, but we'll see.
You're right. And there should be a drop.
Well, at least I don't think he's going to start. I think that just like they had Hurts for the SEC championship game when Tua struggled, I think if he's, semi-healthy and they're losing, they obviously need to win this game, then you might see him late. But in that case, your Mississippi State bet would be safe. All right, let's move on here. What did we hit here?
We didn't talk about Wisconsin, Nebraska on the podcast. Listen, let me just go ahead and bring it up, because I mean, I understand that this may be inflated a little bit. Yeah. So my projection is 14. SP Plus has it 17.5. It's sitting at 14. There's a lot on Wisconsin. A lot of people buying into Wisconsin here. And if they lose this game, I mean, I think Minnesota wraps it up, or at least I'm not sure if that extra game matters. But, I mean, Nebraska, they haven't played a clean game yet. And I think one of the big things that I focused on in all of Scott Frost's, his Monday pressers, his post-game comments, is that this team isn't focused. We lose focus during the middle of the game and things get away from us. So I've had some Nebraska alum and some Nebraska current student body get into my DMs and tell me, hey, there's things going on off the field that people aren't talking about, what we can't talk about. Like players, have multiple girlfriends that are having babies. Players are having off-field problems that are affecting the on-field play. So, I mean, that would go into what I keep hearing from Scott Frost is this team just isn't focused and they can't keep their focus on the field and they lose it during the games. So, I mean, that I think that plays a big part of it. And Adrian Martinez is going to go in this game. Like we say, if he shows the talent that he's got and he plays a clean box score, they should be able to cover Wisconsin. I don't know how that Nebraska front seven stops Jonathan Taylor, though.
Well, the havoc is the most worrying part, but Nebraska's been running. And the power success, you see that there. Mm-hmm. Like they're not going to stop Taylor in any short yardage runs. But I mean, Nebraska's been running poorly. I mean, I played Nebraska plus 14, and I'm mainly playing the spot. I mean, now if there's babies that are going to impact this game, fine. I mean, take my fucking money. But I mean, they're coming off of a bye, right? And Nebraska sits at what is their record now? 4-5. And, so this game is enormous for them. They have Iowa and Maryland left. They're at Maryland. They're off of a bye. This is basically, hey, let's salvage our season with a big win at home. They've been running poorly. I'm assuming they cleaned up some of the things that have been plaguing them. They got a little healthier too. It's an important bye week, this late in November, for a team that's been banged up. So I'm assuming they cleaned up some of those things over the bye. Now, if they didn't, and they're all just in daycares, fine. Wisconsin will win 48-0. But it's a great spot here, and I actually make it slightly under 14.
Very interesting to look and see that Nebraska's only gone over the total once at home this year, and Wisconsin has not gone over the total at all on the road this year. So
Nebraska's 1-8 against the spread on the year. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but no, this should be
They have the same amount of covers as UMass.
Yes.
Nebraska.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead. Yeah, but it should be Max Everett here. That they still want to get to a bowl, but maybe their mind is on daycare. Who knows? All right.
No thanks on Florida State, Alabama State. Sorry. UTEP is getting steamed. Minor Nation. You are getting steamed. This thing hit 18.5. It's down to 15. Obviously, UAB's without their starting quarterback. By the way, Marshall La Tech last night. Marshall won that game. Obi Obialo, by the way, stud. I can't believe he's back. He said he was out for the year. He tweeted it, and he came back. He put up huge numbers last night, and that's huge for the Marshall offense. It's basically just had to start throwing 3 tight ends. Now they have a legit receiver. But La Tech, something to keep an eye on. Their starting quarterback, their best receiver were suspended. They're also suspended next week for UAB. Their backup quarterback got hurt at the end of that game and left the game. So it could be backup versus third string in this UAB La Tech game.
Hopefully no bookmakers are watching this show. But if you hang a La Tech number tomorrow and you don't account for the fact that Jamar Smith and Hardy, the wide receiver, are out, you're going to get pounded multiple times, probably as many times as I can hit it. So
I'm on the under here. I didn't have the
Stones
to bet on UTEP, who I've avoided all year. But I think with UAB, without their starting quarterback, game is going to be ugly. This could easily be 22-3. UAB has weird scores this year. This could be like 22-2. I played the under 44. It looks like it's coming down a little bit, but
you can throw the passing success rate and the passing explosiveness. You can throw those ranks out. Without Tyler Johnson, it's a different story. Last year they had 2 competent quarterbacks. One of them graduated, and Tyler Johnson was left. Tyler Johnson's a really good quarterback, but they just throw it out if he's not there.
Yeah, and they don't run the ball at all. So, look at UAB's rushing numbers there. What are they? 124th in rushing success rate.
Right.
So their backup quarterback can't run the ball. UAB's defense should shut down UTEP. That's why I'm on the under here.
Imagine running around town and whacking UTEP as much as you could. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Lions tomorrow. Like the Lions don't have a running game, and then they're playing with a backup quarterback that kills the passing game. It's the same kind of deal. All right, Navy Notre Dame.
Big one.
Have been wanting to back. If I had Notre Dame, if I had Navy plus 10, plus 11, which you were able to get while in Vegas or while I was sleeping at the wheel, I would have played them. At 7, it's a little trickier for me because I just want to see how Navy's secondary holds up, because that's the main question I have with this team. When they did play any competent passing team, they only played 2, Tulane and Memphis. They did get shredded a little bit. They held up early against Tulane, but they gave up, I think, 7 yards per play plus against both. That's what I'm worried about here. So I think unless this line, if it drastically comes down, I might look at Notre Dame. But if it goes back up to 10 and it's not, I'm sitting out and we'll look possibly live for a play here. But you're on Navy, and you trust you trust just the way that their defense is playing. It's a new defensive scheme, and they're front. They're in the trenches. They're going to compete with Notre Dame. And they always cover this game, right? They always tend to cover.
I wouldn't want to get below a touchdown with Navy because this obviously could go to overtime. I think Navy's going to be that good. And these games seem to always be closer than what the point spread indicates, at least within a touchdown. So you could see the dip here when it came out at 11. That was yours truly here going up to the counter and whacking it, and it never came back. I probably, as a smart investor, should come back and hit Notre Dame at 7, but I'm not going to because I think Navy's that dangerous. And I mean, I know Navy's brand, their pedigree of athletes is not what Notre Dame has, especially in the trench. But I mean, when you look at what Navy's done on defense, it's not getting enough recognition. I mean, 12th in havoc, 10th in line yards, 11th in opportunity rate. There's every reason here that Navy's going to be able to plug holes and at least stop the Notre Dame rush, whatever Notre Dame rush is these days. And I think because of, sack rate is 12th, they're going to be able to get some pressure on Ian Book and get him flushed out. You look at the only thing to worry about on this stat sheet, if you look at the stat sheet, I mean, Navy overwhelmingly has advanced, advantages in everywhere. One thing you worry about is a sack rate of 123rd. It's Malcolm Perry. All right. If he's throwing the ball, it's because he's already tried to play action or triple option fake you.
And Okor is now out for Notre Dame.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about that whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's obviously had a tougher schedule than Navy, but there's some things to really like about Navy here, and the 7 is really important because service academy games, unlike other games, are more likely to land on 7s. Or 7, 14, because they're, instead of at 4th and 2 at the 14, they're not kicking a field goal, they're going for it, right? So that 7 is even more important with a service academy who's rarely going to kick field goals unless they have to or to win the game. Anything else you want to add?
I just want to look at these guys head to head. Like
Navy's 10 and 2 against the spread the last 12.
I mean, if you throw out last year's run to the college football playoff, and it was Navy's worst defense that they've had in like 15 years, if you throw that game out, generally it's been usually pretty close.
Navy's 8 and 2 against the spread the last 10 trips to South Bend, and they've won 2 of their last 11 there.
Right.
Yeah, so they're 8 and 2 against the spread in the last 10 trips. 5 and 1 against the spread the last 6 years. Besides last year,
I think this team is better than the Keenan Reynolds years. I really think that. I think that, especially the defense. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the best defense they've had in a while. They had, and the main reason is last year they played this. I mean, their offense was off too, but last year they played this bend don't break defense that just would get shredded up and down the field, and it just wasn't working. And then they brought in Brian Norwood and from Kansas State. And he was under Snyder, I think at least last year. He was also at Tulsa, and they play a more aggressive brand of football, and they're really aggressive. Right. And I think it's working out for them, and they're playing the trenches is obviously a huge part of that. All right, yeah, Navy wins. New Year's 6.
I want it. I would love to see them in the Cotton Bowl. I think it'd be a great story. I don't put this Navy in the Heart of Dallas Bowl. Put these guys in the Cotton Bowl.
College football playoff.
Sure.
All right. All right. Let's move on to anything else we want to cover in the early slate. No, I mean, I ended up playing. Yeah, I mean, look, I bought. I played Georgia Tech money line. It's part of our money line parlay. If you look at a lot of the advanced stats for Georgia Tech, I kind of throw them out the window. And there's a couple reasons for that. Early in the season, I don't care about what they were doing. They were transitioning from a triple option to a spread. With a triple option offense and personnel that were coached on the triple option for years, recruited for the triple option. Offensive line taught, different splits for the triple option. They don't have tight ends on the roster. The wide receivers weren't. So everything is different. And, so early in the year, they struggled, obviously. They got trucked by Clemson. They lost it at home to the Citadel. They scored 2 points at Temple. But then, they made a quarterback change to Graham. They've averaged about 10 points more per game since that change, by the way. And they're obviously they're improving significantly each week, and they're still trying, which is the most important thing. You got to give credit to Jeff Collins. So their overall season stats, I don't put that much weight into them, and their improvement each week it's visible. I mean, they went to Miami, they had some flukes, but they beat Miami, and Miami's been trucking everyone since in the ACC. So they won at Miami, and then they played a competitive game against Pitt, one possession game at the end of the fourth quarter. And then they played a really competitive game, and Graham looked great against Virginia at Virginia and lost 33-28. So this team is playing just so much better. They always get up for Va-Tech. Now, Va-Tech, surprisingly, somehow controls their own destiny in the ACC Coastal, which is a joke. But, and they've won, I think, 4 or 5. They lost at Notre Dame by 1, but there was a 99-yard fumble recovery.
Uh-huh.
They beat UNC in 5 overtimes in rotating 2-point conversions. They beat Miami 42-35. They got outgained by like 300 yards. They had 5 turnovers to 0. So they easily could have lost to UNC. They easily could have lost to Miami. They did beat Wake, but Wake's decimated by injuries last week, and their defense looked better. But I'm still not a believer in this defense. Their quarterback play has gotten significantly better. It seems like they found a quarterback. But I'm trusting Georgia Tech's continual improvement here, and it's not a real play on the numbers for the season long, because you look at a lot of the numbers, even for Va-Tech, they don't tell the whole story, right? Because Va-Tech's a different team with this new quarterback, and their defense is even playing a little better lately. But I'm not fully buying into what Va-Tech's done lately, and I think Georgia Tech's going to keep improving, and everything that I've seen is they are still max out effort and execution out there. So I'm rolling with Georgia Tech, little +7 buy and little money line.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I mean, listen, Georgia Tech's gonna be able to get an explosive play on the ground offer too. So we'll see if they can keep that close. Virginia Tech's been on a heater, but they should be taking this game pretty seriously. But I mean, Georgia Tech's still playing extremely hard.
Yep. So by the way, I do want to bring up, Wake Forest Clemson. I know you like this over. I ended up playing the under, and maybe Dabo is running hurry up with 4 minutes to go again, and just decides to ruin my day. But I think Wake Forest, who's a speed racer, right? It's always dangerous when you're playing on an elite team against Wake Forest and under. Wake Forest is a speed racer, but I don't think they're going to go that fast today. And the reason for that is they don't have any receivers left. They're going to be throwing it to Newman's going to be throwing it to Hinton, the ex-quarterback, 50 times today?
Right.
Their 2 best receivers are out. Surratt is out for the year, one of the best receivers in the country, 1 of 5 with over 1,000 yards on the year. And Washington is out as well. So their 2 best receivers are out. And Wake Forest cannot pull up our splits over there. Wake Forest cannot run the ball at all. So, without their 2 best receivers in a game where they're significant underdogs, I don't think they're going to be able to throw the ball. I don't think they can't run it, but I think they're going to also have to play slower to try and limit possessions and try and stay in this thing. But Clemson's defense is legit. I mean, look at that Wake Forest rushing. Now, they can throw the ball, but now they're down their top 2 receivers. So I think this gets ugly, and there's not that much value in the number, unfortunately. But I'm playing the under here. I think it's like 45-7 ish.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I haven't laid any money on it. It's just what interests me. But I mean, with Surratt, with the injuries to wide receiver, I'm not sure if Wake Forest can hold up their part. And I think that was the big question for me is Wake Forest going to have any passing success against this Clemson defense? And it doesn't look good with the injury situation. Even in the first half, there is a total of 33. So, I mean, maybe Clemson can get that up. It feels like a 28-0 Clemson lead at half.
Yeah, I mean, the Wake, I would have loved to watch. It would have been a good – we don't get any test for Clemson. It's ridiculous. We do believe in their defense, and we believe in Venables, and we think we're going to ride them. But this would have been a good test. Surratt and Washington,
yes,
versus the secondary, we would have learned a lot about them. Now, of course, and Wake Forest also lost 2 of their best players. They lost some O linemen, but they're linebackers. I mean, we can't even get a simple test here with the Clemson secondary to see how good they are. And
Right.
they're a 35-point favorite again. We're both believers in Clemson, but it's getting a little crazy every week. We used to make fun of the Alabama schedule, but this is ridiculous. All right. I should mention in Syracuse, by the way, Vanderbilt, what's the kid's name? The Vanderbilt quarterback the last couple weeks. Oh, he's so bad. No, what was his name? I gotta look it up. Riley Neal's gonna start today. Deuce Wallace.
The Ball State kid, Riley Neal.
Yeah, who's not great either, but Deuce Wallace, and no, he was just the first couple starts and probably a good kid, but he was bad. Let me pull up his stats here. Deuce Wallace was his quarterback rating on the year is 4.8. His stats are pretty funny. He's 40 of 94 on the year. It's 42%. For 277 yards. That's 2.9 yards per attempt. Under 3 yards per attempt with 0 touchdowns and 4 picks. That gets you a QBR of 4.8 and a rating. I mean, it's just so at least they have Riley Neal going against Kentucky, and I haven't seen who Kentucky's rolling with today. I assume Bowden again, but Sawyer Smith is healthier. Right. I wouldn't no part of this game.
I will say this: Vanderbilt just narrowly missed my round robin parlay, and it was more about what their defense can do against Lynn Bowden Jr. And it really bothered me to see some of these. 21st against power success rate, but they're 79th in stuff rate, which means Lynn Bowden's going to get to the line of scrimmage, but he's not going to get an extra 2 yards. I don't want to mess anything with a defense that's going to allow Lynn Bowden to at least get to the line of scrimmage because he can make things happen. So,
yep.
You want to do
looks
Georgia?
like Alabama too is active in pregame warmups, but no official update yet. He's in a windsuit, but a lot of players are. His cleats on and he's taped up. But
that's what he was in practice all week. He was completely suited up for practice and didn't participate.
Yeah. Again, I think that if he doesn't play, he's still available. You know, if there's an injury or they are like losing in the third quarter. And Wan'Dale Robinson for Nebraska was not on the team bus, but met the teteam.
Well, he had to drop his kid. He had to drop his kids off at the daycare.
So who knows? FSU has Orr at quarterback today. Blackman, Hornibrook, and Jordan Travis. So who knows? Who cares? They're playing Alabama State. But the other quarterback situations to note: Arizona, they haven't. It's going to be both quarterbacks are playing, so it's not just Tate. They have an end on the depth chart, so you're going to see Tate and Gunnell with that 27-point spread. We'll get. We can pull that up now, but the Arizona. Oregon. If Oregon wants to just show out here, they could. But this line is crazy at 27. But the Arizona defense is, what do you think? Worst Power 5 defense?
You want me to give you a worst 5 defense?
I think it's the worst Power 5 defense. But
here, let me bring it up over here on the side. It's pretty bad. I thought they would improve from last year. They haven't improved any under someone. He's got to get rid of his defensive coordinator.
It's really I think you misspelled Arizona. It said Arkansas Education. Look at this defense. 128th in rushing success rate, 120th in passing success rate. All right, do they create some turnovers? No, 120th in havoc. All right, maybe they get to the quarterback. No, 127th in sack rate. It's a joke. Their defense is a joke. They stop explosive runs. That is it. But if Herbert wants to sit back there all day, dink and dunk and run up the score for college football playoff implications, they could. And Arizona's going to be rotating quarterbacks. Stay away from that. Chase Garber is going to go for Cal, by the way. Davis Mills for Stanford. And West Virginia still hasn't named the quarterback. It could be Kendall or Doge. And Miss State still hasn't named the quarterback. You'll probably see both those clowns. All right, where do you want to go next?
Auburn, Georgia.
All right, so I'm on Auburn here, first half, end of the game. We've talked about the Auburn defense. I think it's a top 10 defense. I think that it's every bit as good, if not just a tad better than Georgia, but you're splitting hairs at this point. And, what I'm basing it on is that the Auburn offense, which hasn't been good all year, I think it's going to keep improving with Bo Nix mainly, is going to figure some things out, iron some things out with the bye. Gus with 2 weeks been good off a bye, but they're going to come out with a couple trick plays. Bo Nix is going to be a lot more comfortable at home against an elite team. It's not going to be like Florida. And this Georgia team is just not going to blow you out. And their offense is very efficient. Their defense is rock solid. Everything is really good, but nothing is explosive. And if they just give up a couple explosive plays to Auburn, it's not the type of team that's down 10 that's going to come back and win by 18 against a really good Auburn team. I think an underrated Auburn team, especially as Nix continues to improve. We were all on the fade train of Nix early in the year. Different story at home, different story off of a bye. So I'm taking the 3. I'm taking the 1.5. There's just something off. And look, I have Georgia futures. I hope they win the first half of the game by 1 each. But there's something missing with this Georgia team, and it's explosiveness on the offensive side, and it's just that key playmaker on the defensive side that's going to get the big pick six. It's going to force the fumble. It's just something is a little off with them, and maybe they figure it out today, but I'm willing to roll the dice on the Tigers War Eagle.
Yeah, it feels like Georgia's going to need some sort of luck factor to come in to get this victory, because they've just been so conservative in their play calling. Then they've had to play catch up, and you're not going to be able to do that against this defense. I mean, this is elite defense that Auburn has. Malzahn's going to be completely prepared for this game, 11-0 as a head coach off of a bye week. But beyond that, he's going to have everything schemed to go against where Georgia's weaknesses are. And so I go back to what my game plan for this. I did stick Auburn in the round robin parlay. A couple of reasons for that. One, I think Auburn has a real shot to win here. I mean, it's literally, I think Georgia has a 52% to win this game. So, I mean, Auburn has a real shot as an underdog to win this. But also putting Auburn in my round robin parlays was just something that I thought I had to do, considering how much I have on Georgia futures to win the national championship. So if they get knocked out here, if Georgia survives, great. I don't care that I lost my round robin. If Georgia loses here, at least I'm going to get paid a little bit for it. So at least there was a little bit of a hedge there. But I mean, listen, I think Malzahn's going to have some trick plays up his sleeve. I think the special teams are going to be excellent on both sides. This could come down to the leg of Rodrigo Blankenship. Georgia's play calling has been atrocious. Now Georgia comes out and they start throwing the ball on first and second down, and they're running plays that we haven't seen before. Okay, then fine. We would lose any Auburn money that we have, but my goal here is to look at Georgia in the second quarter, predict about if they're going to get a possession before the end of the half, and if they didn't win the toss and they're going to get the ball in the second half, that's going to be the time that I'm going to play Georgia. But I'm going to play Georgia live, and I'm looking for them to be down in the game and to get this at either a pick or maybe even plus points on Georgia. But just their nature of play, they always play better in the second half than the first half. So that's the way I'm playing it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about early is that this is ahead of the Florida game, is that maybe, I was just thinking about Georgia as a whole, is maybe, and I said this all October, right? I said they're going to be sleepy. They have jokes on the schedule, and then they know they have Florida coming up, after a bye in November. So I said they're going to be sleepy all month, right? And it ended up costing them against South Carolina. But all year, they haven't really played anybody up. They played Notre Dame at home. They called it really conservative. But I thought in totality, maybe they were just being really conservative, saving, not showing anything, right? But then they played Florida, and they moved the ball well against Florida, efficiently moved the ball, throwing through the air. Fromm had a great game. They couldn't run it, but they didn't. That was their biggest game of the year, right? That decides the division, and they didn't. I didn't see what I thought was they were holding back. And if you look at the weaknesses of the Auburn defense this year, which I think is a top 10 unit overall, excellent front, which is one of the few that can compete with the great Georgia offensive line. The one weakness that they've had is they've given up some explosive plays. That's it. But Georgia, that's what Georgia doesn't do. So it's a great matchup for the Auburn defense. It'll come down to Bo Nix and what what they've done over the bye and what Malzahn has cooked up. So
Mac Jones is taking reps with the first team on the field, and Tua is just kind of standing around in his pads.
there you go.
And the number is crashing.
And the committee just moved Bam up to 4. All right. By the way, I do have to say something. You want to scroll up to noon? Right there is good. Where's that? Michigan State. It hit 14. I got to make an announcement. I bet Sparty again. So,
Can you read the stats? Can you read all the red there through your mask?
You had to put it up. I don't want to look at that. Look, the defense is still elite. They've been running really poorly, and on the offensive side, the offense is a wreck, and they have injuries, but the Michigan offense is average. It's getting better, but it's still average. I think Michigan State's defense can keep them in it. I don't know. I mean, I have a clown mask on talking about this game for a reason. I told a friend.
How many clown masks do you have?
I don't. It's a secret. You have to tune into more live shows to see.
Fly them to Vegas for the national championship, please.
Oh, I will. What I told my friend, which I think is funny and true, is we were saying all week we'll play Sparty if it gets to 14, right? And I said, you know what's going to happen if it gets to 14. Michigan State, who owns me, Michigan State will lose by 55. If it never gets to 14 and it sits at 13.5. And I never bet it, Sparty wins outright. So it got to 14, which means I had to bet it on principle of the number. You can't have a bias. Got to have a short-term memory. I don't like doing it just as much as you don't if you followed. But I'm petrified of this game. I don't even think it'll get a TV. I have much more action. I might just put it on a stream in the corner of the room next to me and check on it periodically. But this game's been really close. I mean, it's a rivalry game. Sparty's season's lost. You would think they show up here. And Sparty 10-1 against the spread in the last 11 in this series. I mean, they've been a wreck. Michigan's 1-10 against the spread in their last 11 against Michigan State. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think you get their best effort. It's a lost season, but it's Michigan State. So, and is Gus calling this, I think?
I have no clue.
I assume. So you get 2 points for Gus calling it. I just got a text from someone getting drunk so I don't have to watch my Lewerke bet sober. Well, cheers.
How is this Texas-Iowa State game trending under? That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Wind, my friend.
No. Brock Purdy's not as strong as the wind.
Check the wind. That's what I'm just saying. 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But, I mean, Texas's game is going to be based all on the ground today, which, I mean, I guess supports the under, too.
Texas also have some banged-up receivers.
I'd have to switch over and see what my projected total was here. Going behind, pulling the curtain back here to look at my stuff. 58.
Yeah, I mean you have high winds, some Texas injuries. Yeah, I don't want any part of the under in this game, but and Texas defense is going to keep getting better. You can't look at a lot of their stats for the year. I think there's holes in the defense, but a lot of their stats for the year are completely skewed because they've had so many injuries. Mm-hmm. So as they get healthier, and by the way, Jalen Green, one of their starters, is out for the first half through targeting. As they get better. As they get healthier, their defense is going to get better. So, when they go to a bowl and they're fully healthy, that defense could be undervalued in the market by that time.
Right. You know who's still playing hard? Houston, for some reason. I have no clue why. They've redshirted their season. I'm not sure why this team is still playing so hard.
Dana
covered the last. Can't win, but have definitely covered the last two.
Well, they didn't play too hard at UConn. in a bad.
And you have to wonder, like, Norvell, how much has Mike Norvell heard his name thrown around for Florida State, for Arkansas? You know what his focus. I mean, he's trying to win a conference championship here, but at the same time, he's had a lot of extra phone calls this week.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also important. I mean, that's an important game for not only Memphis' season, but Memphis is in the conversation for New Year's Six.
Well, it's an important conversation from a recruiting standpoint too, because Memphis' roster is loaded with Texas players, and that's where Norvell likes to do all his recruiting. So,
yeah, totals at 72. Is that SMU's off this week?
Right.
So sorry to everyone out there that's been just pulling the ATM lever every week on SMU overs. You have to look elsewhere this week. Raiders overs have been the same in the NFL, so you have that.
You got anything on this? Do you want to do Minnesota, Iowa?
No, we're running low on time. We wrote a bunch about that on the Action Network app, Action Network website, actionnetwork.com. Large preview for that game, and then also Georgia Auburn. So check that out. But we've been on for 50 minutes. So let's get to the evening slate.
Okay.
Let's talk. Let's pull up LSU Ole Miss and see what this looks like. I mean, I think obviously I don't care what anyone. There's a big contingent of people out there, and they have every right to think this, that you can't predict situational spots, right? Like flat spots. I mean, I've made my following on doing that in college basketball, partly. And what you'll say is you'll have both sides of this, of the argument on situational handicapping. You'll have one side say, look at this game. They were supposed to be flat and they rolled. Situational spots don't mean anything. Then you'll have another side say, look, this team, they were so flat and they didn't win and they didn't cover. That's not the point. There's situational spots are not science, number one. It's more of a feel, art, there's intuition. Some people are just pure math gappers. Some people are feel, more old school. Some people are a mix, which I consider myself. But my goal with situational spots is to hit, 54, 55% over time. So a lot of them are going to be wrong, but if I think in aggregate, that's what I'm looking to do. So obviously you point to any situational spot, but I don't think it's a science by any means. You can't just say, and we talk about this every week on the podcast. You can't just say this team played a huge team, had a big game. They have a big game on deck. So that means this week I have to fade them. No. And ultimately what I think makes the difference is the number. You have to look at the value of the number. And then, there's some feel involved, but you can't just blindly tail these situational spots. It's not a science at all. But I do think LSU should it's reasonable to think LSU will come out a little flat in this game. Right. Not only did they just win at Alabama, they went home, they had off the plane, they were running around, people on the fences going crazy, like insane. Like they just won.
It's like they're the Beatles. The Beatles just showed up to Shea Stadium.
Insane. They heard how good they are all week. Best team in the nation. They also heard they can lose a game and still get in. I mean, it's not like this team even has to keep winning. So it's reasonable to think that they're gonna come out a little flat. And all that means when I say you're gonna come out a little flat, and I'll say this over and over again, is a football team that wants to win a game, and now LSU team, they're not going to be flat the entire game. Sometimes it happens when you're in a daze. I've been there, and it's just weird all game. But 99% of the time, you wake up, the other team scores, and you're like, shit. You make a big play. There's a big hit. The sidelines wake up. But all that means is like the other team, if you come out a little flat, the other team, you have a sloppy turnover. You have miscommunication in the secondary. You drop the ball when the running back goes the wrong way on a handoff, just because you were a little lackadaisical and flat. And all that means is the other team might pick up a quick 7, and then that's huge. I mean, that impacts the whole game. So that's what I mean by flat, is that it's not a whole game thing. It's just that maybe they come out a little flat and Ole Miss takes advantage initially. But I do think that there's holes in the LSU defense. And their offense is so good that they can compensate for it over anybody. They average 46 again. They put up 46 against Alabama in Alabama. So I think Ole Miss can have some success. I think the number is pretty spot on, but with the situational spot, with the LSU offensive line injuries, They have new starters and new positions this week. I took a shot with Ole Miss. Wouldn't do it under 21, but 21 or better. Obviously, a key number I think is worth a shot.
Yeah, definitely. Ole Miss is the side here to look for. Plumlee is just brought a different element to this offense too. I mean, I haven't seen anybody catch him yet. I haven't seen anybody catch this guy. The guy is flash. A good spot to catch LSU. We mentioned all of that. I was laughing while you were going through that because it was just brought to my attention that there are bats with rabies flying around Wade Davis Stadium above Alabama and Mississippi State pregame. There's some crazy shit going on in that game. There's crazy shit going on with the line, stuff with Tua.
But how do they know they have rabies?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I might have to put a money line pick in on cowbell. I mean, there's some craziness going on in this game.
Okay.
What is this bats with? How do they know they have rabies?
So we've talked so far this podcast. We've talked about babies and bat rabies, which I never thought.
So listen, I had a question. I'll just go real quick on this. I had a couple of people hit me up in my DMs about why I was on NC State so early in the week, and really the first thing that got my last Sunday was the Havoc. The first thing that got me noticed was the Havoc rate. So let me go ahead and look at that right now. I got 37. Yeah. So NC State's 37th in Havoc, and Louisville's had some serious problems on the offensive line, 128th in Havoc allowed. That's what kind of turned me onto this. And then I looked at a couple of other stats in here in the sheet, and I just thought, Louisville had their Cunningham, their backup quarterback, get hurt last week. There was a potential that he wouldn't play this week and they'd be on their third string quarterback. Offensive line hasn't been able to do anything. If you look at these read options that Cunningham has been running, I mean, I watched game film on this for like about 2 hours and it's just a disaster. Like Satterfield doesn't get anything out of his offense anymore. Not the Louisville running team that we had liked in previous weeks. So I'm going to take NC State. Yeah. So we can move on, but I just wanted to say that there was a lot of reasons. Louisville offensive incompetency is a reason why I was on NC State.
Now, we can move on, but we haven't liked Louisville. That's a you problem. Just like Akron is a me problem. Louisville is a you problem. I should mention Louisville, NC State, by the way. And it's November. We got to talk about weather at some point in this podcast. That the weather really today, you have wind in Texas, Iowa State. And our colleague, Danny Donahue, puts out a great article every week. It's just a must read. Like I don't have to chase around all of the weather where he summarizes, anything 15 and above. 15 miles per hour and above. Some people say 20 is really the threshold. But 15 and above unders have done well historically. And that's against the close. They usually will drop. And that article shows that. But yeah, the weather's not great in the Carolinas today. And that's, there's some other wind spots to keep in mind. Texas, Iowa State, which we went over, but the Carolina games, Duke and Syracuse and NC State and Louisville are the ones you want to keep an eye on.
I'd say don't worry about the Georgia Southern 16 mile per hour wind, since their kicker hit a 51-yarder and a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is the winds in Georgia Southern recently have been significant, and you can get high winds there. Same with Wyoming, right? And that's a huge advantage to both of those teams. Not only does Wyoming have elevation, but when they get a lot of wind or snow, they're a running team. Well, guess what Georgia Southern is? A running team. So wind doesn't matter to them at all. So when you have a team come in there and I wanted to look at potentially Monroe, but with the winds, and if you look at UL Monroe's rushing stats, their defensive rushing stats, yikes. Yeah. And then with the wind.
There's a reason that the Georgia Southern's favored there. Yeah. Statesboro wind. We didn't think we'd be talking about that. You want to wrap up on Oklahoma Baylor?
Yeah. What do you got there?
Well, I had known that the couple of the people I roll with in Vegas were going to be hitting Oklahoma pretty hard, and it looks like it's gone that way. And the number got up to 11, then it got chipped back down to 10.5. But I'm going to stand by what I said in the podcast. I don't trust Oklahoma's defense enough to. I don't know where the effort's been on the speed D, and they're not creating enough havoc, and they're not getting. They're allowing things to happen in the fourth quarter. Their success rate in the fourth quarter has been terrible the last couple of games. So while I think Oklahoma is a good play to cover this number, maybe up until the beginning of the fourth quarter. I'd start getting nervous right around then.
I actually like. I mean, look, Oklahoma's a top 25 havoc rate on D, and
Yeah.
the biggest problem is that they're because they're really aggressive and they're really fast, right? And that's why Texas was asinine for what they were doing. They were running like those screen passes and they stayed in the game because Oklahoma was just vomiting on themselves, Mason Rudolph style. But what I think here you have to worry about is the explosive plays. Just look at Oklahoma up and down. It's the story tells itself there. They're only red or passing explosiveness defense and rushing explosive defense.
Right.
And Baylor is a big play offense. That's what they have to worry about. But I think ultimately that Oklahoma defense, which is aggressive, which will blitz a lot, can create enough plays to get Baylor behind the sticks to cause fumbles with their defensive line against a really weak Baylor offensive line. They are getting their best, what's up, Baylor, Dan, one of their best offensive linemen back this week. Still a major point of weakness. And then the Oklahoma offense, you're just not going to stop them. And this Baylor defense isn't going to stop them. Don't forget that Baylor's best defensive player was out for the last couple of weeks. We talked about that in the Oklahoma State game, but it's still a factor now. And Clay Johnson, their linebacker and leading tackler. So I just don't see bad. Now, look, Matt Rule's going to have his team fired up. 10-point dogs. He's great as an underdog coach against the spread. He's going to play us against the world. No respect card here. And they're going to hit some big plays and keep this close. But ultimately, I think it's just a couple sacks here and there that stall Baylor drives, and Oklahoma offense will do its thing.
Yeah, I agree.
But numbers spot on. I threw him in the money line parlay with Iowa. All right. Anything else that you?
No, I mean, the Cal numbers come down. I don't know if that's a Garbers or something's coming out on USC. I don't know. I think it could be Garbers, but I backed Cal all week, so definitely like them here. I'm
going to add South Carolina right now, by the way.
Okay.
Still getting 11. I forgot to do that. I was under the impression that South Carolina was a lot unhealthier than I thought. And they're not. I mean, they're getting healthier this week. It looks like most of their players are going to play. I mean, Feaster's not, but there's not much of a drop off to the backup. So their wide receivers are back, who are their best returners. So I think this line is inflated here. South Carolina also should care here. They're 4-6. They got Clemson on deck, but in order for that game to mean bowl eligibility, they got to win this one. I think that South Carolina here is live. Anything over 10.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Muschamp's getting a vote of confidence from his athletic director, so that means you better win this game or your ass may be rolling out the door. I think South Carolina's going to be completely fired up for this game. The number I have got at 10, so I would say, the 11 is good. But yeah, you should get a max effort here out of South Carolina.
Also, this Texas A&M team we saw all year, we thought that they were going to be really good. They just have a brutal schedule, which they did.
Right.
But who have they beat? Bobcats, Texas State early in the year. And they lost to Clemson. Then they beat Lamar. They beat Arkansas by 4 on a neutral field. That looks worse and worse.
They needed some Nick Starkel INTs to get that done.
I mean, they should have lost that game. They got blown out by Bama. They beat Ole Miss by 7 in the game they should have lost. By the way, I was on it. Brutal beat, by the way. I mean, in that game, Ole Miss had 405 yards, 5.4 yards per play. Outgained Texas A&M by 60. And I mean, there was a fluke fumble return for a touchdown that A&M had.
Right.
And then they beat Miss State after that game.
But they were given 3 turnovers. So yeah,
I was just a fluke game. That they beat UTSA. So you look at their overall resume. This is a team that hasn't done anything, and I severely overvalued coming into the year. They still can't find. I mean, look, they still can't find a running game, and they break no runs whatsoever at all. And the South Carolina run defense is really good, so they're not going to be able to run it. And look at that pass explosiveness. Mon's going to efficiently move the ball at times, but the South Carolina defense is good, and their offense is healthier here. South Carolina won at Georgia. Don't forget, they have the best win of either of those teams by far. And they need this game for bowl eligibility. I hope they win. It'll make the Clemson game more interesting next week.
Yep.
And maybe Clemson will finally get a test. But yeah, I'm on the Cox here.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. I don't have any money on this game. Maybe I'll have it by the. I know for a fact that there are games in the mid-afternoon slate and night slate that I still want to hit. So I'd say pay attention on the action apps. Some stuff will come through. One or two of these games, I'll announce I'm going to play them live. And I guess the last thing I have to say is before we wrap this up is the piece tomorrow morning, where I go ahead and project lines for the following week. There's going to be heavy bowl implications, whether teams have been knocked out, whether they are going up against a team that doesn't have, a team that's trying to get to a bowl versus a team that's already been knocked out is unless it's Tulsa, is a really big capping angle. So look for that piece tomorrow morning as we project next week's lines on 10 Horn weekend. Because getting to a bowl is going to be a really big deal. And plus we've got to start hedging. You might want to start hedging your win total futures. There's a ton of them out there that we hit in the preseason, and they're all coming into play here. Because I think about Texas A&M, they were sitting 7.5. So a pretty big game here if you had a under or over on the Aggies.
Gun to your head, you have to pick before you go 2 top 10 teams that go down today.
Georgia. Sad that came to my mind. Listen.
Minnesota.
I'm just gonna say, Minnesota, but I don't want to take the easy way out. I'm gonna say that I think that there's just
the state of Mississippi. Will there be?
Yes. I think the line for Cowbell stinks. I think the situation stinks. I think the situation with Tua stinks. I think Alabama's front seven on defense stinks. I think nobody in the world is expecting this, and you and I are the only ones that think Cowbell has not just a shot to cover, but some just win. Yeah, there's some crazy shit happening here. So
I think that there will be fourth quarter drama at the minimum in at least one, if not both,
Mississippi
games in the state of Mississippi.
I agree.
And what is the drive? What time are those games at? LSU's at 7.
Got the JP kick for Cowbell here.
Yeah. So if you wanted to. Yeah, that's noon kick for Miss State, and then so if you want to go to that first game and see the drama, and then make the hour drive over to Oxford for the second game, it's a hell of a day. Just get an Uber or a designated driver,
or you could just go to Tunica and sit in the sports book and bet it all day.
Yep, you could do that. All right, should be a hell of a day. Keep track of us on Twitter. We'll be recording a recap of the day on our podcast, Action Network podcast, tomorrow. Be out Monday morning. Good luck today. We'll catch y'all later. Cheers. Don't forget about the voicemails.
Peace out.